At 19, he was the youngest chapter president in Nomads history. By 34, he controlled Australia's most feared motorcycle club as national president. With 7 years in prison, 4.5 in isolation, 15 attempts on his life. But that's not even where the story begins. It starts with a 10-year-old boy in Western Sydney's Housing Commission, learning to handle pistols while other kids played with toys.
Wasn't a normal kid, bro. Like, I clocked a gun back at the age of 10.
By 12, he was on the streets. By 14, he wore the colors that made hardened men tremble. From running a multi-million-dollar criminal empire to building a social media kingdom with over 500,000 followers.
He's someone who's very well known to many different people. Firstly, he was a bikie with the Nomads. Now he's a TikTok star and an Instagram star.
From facing a potential 30-year sentence for 4 murder charges to becoming one of Australia's most influential digital voices.
He has a YouTube channel, a streetwear clothing line based on his Instagram tag, a reinvention funded, he insists, by clean money.
This is the story of Moudi Tajjour, cousin to the infamous Ibrahim brothers, former national president of the Nomads.
Moudi Tajjour, national president of the Nomads, no longer.
There was internal issues going on. I took control of the club and now it's all stabilised again. I've sat back down again.
A man who turned down a $4 million offer to return to club life. Some call him a gangster, others a social media sensation.
But the assumption has been, probably fairly, that you've created wealth through criminality.
Why do you assume that?
Is that not the case?
Why would you assume that? Because of the way I look? Surely you've been brought up wiser than that to judge a book by its cover.
Well, how have you made the money then?
Legitimate, mate.
But to fully understand the man, we need to understand the boy who became the prince of Sydney's streets. In the Housing Commission flats of Maryland's Western Sydney, a young Moudi Tajjour watched as Ferraris and Lamborghinis pulled up outside his childhood home. Inside, men in expensive suits drank coffee with his mother.
I was born in the western suburbs, Marylands, but I grew up around King's Cross. It was easy. I come from a big family, so my cousins were the Ibrahims, so growing up here was easy street. How could I put it? Born into a crime family, so to speak.
Among these regular visitors was Roger Rogerson, a detective who would later become infamous for corruption. In those early days, Rogerson was just another face orbiting the Ibrahim family's growing empire. So at age 10, Moudi was already part of a criminal dynasty. His cousins, Sam and John Ibrahim, had been brought from Lebanon years earlier by his mother, before their own mother could make the journey.
I was born into a crime family, so there was no choice. Simple. My mum's got a sister, right? Her kids are the Ibrahims. My mum brought John and Sam from Lebanon here, before their mum came over here.
They had risen from the same commission flats to rule the streets of King's Cross. And in the sprawling underworld of Sydney, the Ibrahim name carried weight that even hardened criminals respected.
I got to a certain age, maybe 12. My cousin was already full-blown gangster, had moved out of my mum's, coming in Ferraris, Lamborghinis. From a young age, I just knew I don't want to be these in these houses.
At the time, Louis B. and Billy controlled King's Cross alongside George Freeman. Their influence stretched far beyond the neon-lit strip. Freeman's kids would later come under Moudi's wing, a testament to how power shifted between generations in Sydney's underworld. But Sam Ibrahim was carving out his own territory, and young Moudi watched every move. The transformation from commission kid to criminal royalty happened seamlessly, naturally, like a prince being groomed for his future throne.
When I was growing up, we had no money to eat. So, like, I've experienced the lowest of the barrel to the highest of the barrel.
Other children avoided him. There were no birthday party invitations, no after-school playdates. The Housing Commission stigma marked him as different, but Moudi had something more valuable: power by association.
People look down at you. You know, when I used to go to school, I didn't get invited to parties, other kids' parties and that, because all the housing kids.
The Ibrahim name opened doors that money couldn't buy. While his peers dreamed of escaping poverty through education or sports, Moudi was learning a different path to success.
They were, in their time, they were the king and prince, Sam and John, and I was the younger cousin. And I just started, I was living with them and I just looked up to them. I started being a criminal since I was a kid.
By 12, he was handling firearms under Sam's guidance. Always with gloves, that was the first rule.
I knew how to clock a gun back, pull the clip back out at the age of maybe I was 9 or 10. I'd watch my cousin, I'd learn how to pull the clip out, clock it back. I always knew to put gloves on when I grab a pistol. Watching my cousins. When I was a kid, you know, I would have been about 10.
While other families in the commission struggled, money flowed through the Tajjour household like water. Moudi watched as his cousins counted stacks of cash at the kitchen counter, learning early that poverty was a choice and he wouldn't take that route. That same year, he left home.
I left home when I was about 12 and I just grew up on the streets. I joined the motorcycle club when I was just under 15.
The streets of Western Sydney became his classroom and criminals his teachers. In Maryland and Parramatta, he built a reputation that would eventually echo through prison cells and clubhouses across Australia. His father had left when Moudi was young, but Sam became more than a cousin. He was a father figure, mentor, and gateway into a world where violence and loyalty were currency.
My dad left us when I was a kid, and my cousins were the Ibrahims, Sam and John.
Yeah.
Sam basically was a father figure from a young age.
But prison cells across New South Wales would soon ring with his name.
First time I went to prison, I would have been the age of 16. A person in Bondi made up a lot of lies about me, and I got charged with 7 kidnappings, 4 home invasions. But it was all lies. I never committed those crimes, and I was put into Carry On Juvenile Centre, and then I ended up getting bail for 1.2 million down the track. Yeah. And then, ended up proving I'm innocent. And I just went back to the crew.
The education of the streets would shape this young prince in ways that would shake Australia's underworld to its core. In the commission flats of Marylands, a dynasty was rising, and Moudi Tajjour was its heir apparent. Hey brothers, tired of YouTube's BS and censorship? It's time to break free. That's why I've shifted gears to Patreon, where I can bring you the raw, uncensored content you crave. Join my Patreon crew and get an insane package deal. Exclusive early access to all videos, days before YouTube, 100% ad-free viewing experience. Uncensored, no-holds-barred community discussions, double the content. 2 killer videos every single week, VIP access. Direct interaction with yours truly, inside scoop. Exclusive biker world updates you won't find anywhere else. Ready to join the elite? Hit that Patreon link now. Your support doesn't just keep us rolling, it fuels a revolution of uncensored, unrestricted content. Join now and unlock a world of exclusive benefits. In 1999, at the age of 14, Moudi walked into his first Nomads meeting. His cousin Sam Ibrahim's reputation opened the door, but what followed was earned through blood and loyalty. The Scorpions were his first taste of outlaw life, but the Nomads would become his destiny.
My cousin was the boss, my cousin Sam, who Australia knows him as Sam Ibrahim. He was the king of the cross, and he was the leader of the Nomads. I just joined the family ranks.
The Nomads had strict rules. 3 months as a hangaround, then nominee status. 2 patches on the leather vest. Nomads Australia. Most waited a year for the center patch.
I joined Nomads, it took me 18 months to get my colours. Kept getting kicked out, bashing members, attacking members now. That was the longest nom in the history of the Vikings.
Every patch told a story of loyalty proven, respect earned, blood spilled. While his former classmates attended their Year 9 formal at White Palace in rented suits, Moudi rode through Sydney streets in Nomads colours.
I remember year 9, it was either year 9 or year 10, they were having their formal, and I rode up to get food for the boys. It was a nom for the Nomads, and I see my mates having their formal. Their year 10 formal, I think it was. Granville, at White Palace, I'll never forget the place.
His education wasn't in classrooms, but in clubhouses. Big Greg, one of the club's leaders, became his mentor. And the first lesson came when Moudi showed up wearing Legos instead of the required Johnny Rebs boots and Levi jeans. In the bikie world, even fashion carried consequences. So the transformation was swift. At an age when most teenagers worried about school grades, Moudi was attending club runs on motorcycles worth $45,000. The vest on his back grew heavy with patches. Each one represented power. Each one demanded respect. The Nomads weren't just any motorcycle club. They were elite, feared, and respected. By 19, he sat at the head of the table as chapter president, the youngest in the club's history. King's Cross bowed to the new prince. Every tattoo shop, every club, every street corner paid tribute. The boy from the commission flats now commanded men twice his age.
When I was in the motorcycle club, at the age of 19, I was the president of a chapter.
His reputation grew beyond the club, but the brotherhood had its dark side. Racial tensions simmered beneath the surface. Once, a member referred to the Middle Eastern members as the Taliban chapter. Blood was spilled that day. In Moudi's world, respect wasn't asked for. It was demanded and enforced with violence if necessary. But power at such a young age came with a price tag, one that would soon be written in blood on the streets of King's Cross. New Year's Eve, 2006, changed everything. The neon lights of King's Cross painted the streets in artificial daylight as Moudi lay on a couch in the sleeve master's tattoo shop, the effects of a long night clouding his judgment. Robin Nassour appeared outside, his finger raised in defiance, a simple gesture that would end one life and forever alter another.
I was running
DCMs?
the street,
Yep.
the street boys, and this is what I started over. So I'm standing like that next to John, and I see this right in front of DCM in a Saab convertible, and stood up and goes, "John, you f***ing dog," and went like to John. And then that night, it was New Year's Eve.
He pressed his leg against the tattoo shop window, shouting insults. The disrespect couldn't go unanswered. Not in Moudi's world. Hours later, in an underground parking garage, everything spiraled out of control. Nassour had buzzed the intercom, lifted his shirt to reveal a gun. The confrontation was inevitable. When it ended, Nassour lay bleeding from a knife wound to the leg. Moudi claimed no knowledge of his associate's weapon.
Came over to the shop knowing that I get rent from there, and smashed the window, and I've woken up. What the fuck was that? I've seen the broken window. I've come out. I said, "You little dog," and I slapped him. And he got left there. And then a couple of hours later, he's G'd himself up and rocked up to where the party was and buzzed the buzzer and said, "Come down." A long story short, we go downstairs and
Is this in the underground car park?
yeah, he dies, and his brother.
Because you hit a
I never
hit a vein or
I never hit it.
No, you didn't. Right.
He was hit in the leg.
With the knife, yeah, that he bled out.
And to be honest, I never knew my mate had a knife on him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
My mate's dead now.
So it was you and Sleeman did the time, didn't you?
Yeah, I could talk about it. He's dead now,
Yeah.
so I could talk about it openly. He killed fucking Robin. Yeah, I
Yeah.
plead guilty to it.
Yeah. You did.
Because what can we do?
As Nassour's life ebbed away, Moudi made one last call to an ambulance, but it was too late. The courts called it manslaughter. 7 years was the price, but Australian prisons weren't what Hollywood portrayed. Moudi was charged with not just one death, but 4 murders.
I was charged with 4 murders, yes, brother. Everyone in Sydney knows this. Yes. I ain't sitting here fucking talking shit here.
3 were dropped. He took the plea deal for manslaughter, though he maintained he never delivered the fatal blow.
Moudi was jailed in 2007 for manslaughter alongside his brother Sleeman and cousin Michael Ibrahim.
Behind bars, isolation became his new normal. 4.5 years in segregation. The prison system labeled him too dangerous for the general population. But isolation didn't break him. It birthed something new.
So I was in jail for a very long time, 8 years. Out of the 8 years, I spent 5 years in isolation due to the management deeming me a risk and a threat to the system.
The notorious gang formed under his leadership, a prison outfit that would eventually become John Ibrahim's street army.
So, yeah, ended up opening up Notorious. It was a prison gang for about 6 years inside the prison walls.
In the concrete box of his cell, Moudi studied every religion, questioning his faith, his choices, his path. He read the Bible, the Torah, but found his answers in the Quran. The isolation changed him, but not in the way the system intended. He emerged harder, more focused, more dangerous. But for the next decade, Nassour's family would hunt him relentlessly. Every club, every public appearance carried the risk of revenge. But the streets had taught him survival, and prison had taught him patience. The price of power was eternal vigilance, and Moudi Tajjour had paid for his throne in blood. Released in 2013, Moudi returned to a different world. The streets had new rules, new players. But the Nomads welcomed their prince home with open arms.
When I got out of jail, my brother had went back to the Nomads, and he told me to come back to the Nomads.
His homecoming was marked not with celebration, but with blood. He had scores to settle.
So then I left Notorious, and I went back to the Nomads.
His rise to national president was meteoric again. With his brother Slimane by his side, the Tajjour brothers became a force that made even hardened criminals tread carefully. The brothers were inseparable, a two-man army that controlled Australia's most feared motorcycle club. Under their reign, the Nomads expanded their territory, their influence reaching every corner of Sydney's underworld. But law enforcement had evolved too. The newly minted Strike Force Raptor, led by Detective Superintendent Deb Wallace, hunted bikies with military precision.
We will use every law available to us to bring you to justice.
Wallace became legendary, known for her bright jumpsuits and high heels during raids.
Gang squad police have shut down a nomad bikie clubhouse during a dramatic raid at Wetherill Park. 13 members have been charged, and senior police say that's just the beginning.
She walked through lines of arrested bikies, her stilettos clicking on concrete.
Friday night at the bikies' inner sanctum, heavily armed police invade their clubhouse. Tactical officers stand over their targets, 13 fully patched members of the Nomads motorcycle gang.
On your knees.
Among the lineup, Moudi and Moudi Tajjour, convicted killers and cousins of the notorious Ibrahim family.
On the offence of consorting, and you'll be arrested, taken back and charged for that.
The gang squad armed with toughened bikie laws that make criminals simply contacting criminals a crime.
Previously it had to be face-to-face contact. Now it has been extended to allow that contact to include telecommunications such as Facebook, phone contact, etc.
The 2012 consorting laws criminalized criminal associations. Moudi's own brother became one of the first charged under the new legislation. The law was simple. 3 known criminals together constituted a crime. Family ties meant nothing to the new legislation.
Moudi's brother fought the state's consorting laws in the High Court.
Power bred paranoia. His reign was marked by violence and expansion. But while the Nomads grew under his leadership, so did the list of enemies. Every decision carried weight. Every order had consequences. From his throne at the head of the table, Moudi controlled an empire built on loyalty and fear.
Because I always lived my life was like this. Follow my lead and get out of line, I'll smash your fucking head open. You want to run with me? You do what I say. You act the way I tell you to act. You back down to anyone, I'll crush you. You rob from your brothers, I'll crush you. Fuck your brothers' missus, I'll crush you. Live with morals and run with me, you'll be sweet. I've always lived my life like that. Whether I was a national or just running a fucking normal crew.
The old codes were dying. The brotherhood that had once defined bikie culture was eroding. replaced by suspicion and betrayal. But nobody warned him that his throne was built on shifting sand. Nobody told him that the higher you climb, the harder the fall. Change was coming, and not even the king of the nomads could stop it. By 2018, the walls were closing in. Moudi felt it everywhere, in the shadows that followed him, in the whispers among his own crew, in the growing paranoia that gripped his every move. One night at a Middle Feast restaurant, 4 soldiers guarded the door while he ate dinner. It was no ordinary meal. Detective Superintendent Wallace appeared without warning.
Yeah, she's crazy, mate. She went head to head with me.
Yeah.
Her reputation preceded her, the gangbuster who had taken down countless bikies. But this time she came almost alone, with just a single companion. It was a power move that spoke volumes.
I was eating at a restaurant called Middle Feast, and I was with a girl, and I had 4 soldiers guarding the restaurant while I was eating. And then Beachy blocked off the whole area.
In front of Moudi's date, she served him with terror watch list papers. The message was clear: adapt or perish. No associations, no normal life, no escape.
She's actually a nice lady, to be honest with you. Yeah, very strong lady, very stern, straight, and she ran her force pretty well. I was surprised she stood down.
Yeah, she decided just to retire.
She done a lot for this country. You can't shy away from. She took down the bikies, and I was one of them.
Every restaurant, every cafe, every business he touched came under scrutiny. His girlfriend was told to leave. She had 1 second to exit the building.
Sat on the table, he goes to the young lady, "You got 1 second, get the fuck out of here." She left, and he goes to me straight out, he goes, "You're not gonna have a girlfriend, you're not gonna have nothing. You need to fucking leave this life. You got 1 chance, throw your colours in." He goes, "I'm gonna ruin your life." And then served me with this terrorist thing, you know, the terror watch list?
Yeah.
I was on the terror watch list. I go, "What's that?" He goes, "You're not on the bikie list no more." He goes, "This is a different ballgame for you," and gave it to me. And I read it, gave it to my lawyer, and he goes, "Mate, you're f***ed." He goes, "They're gonna put you away." He goes, "If you stay wearing those colours, there's no ifs or buts." He goes, "What the guidelines are, they had like 15 things if I breached. I couldn't, there was no way for me to be biking no more."
This wasn't just law enforcement. This was systematic destruction of a life. The pressure mounted from within the club, too. Paranoia took hold. Moudi began to suspect his own brothers were plotting against him. The streets whispered about contracts, about internal power plays. After 20 years in the club, after ascending to its highest rank, he faced a choice: leave or die.
When you lose trust in people and you're living in a dangerous world, you have no choice but to leave when you feel that if I stay in this environment, I'm going to be murdered. I just felt that there was no love there anymore on that end, and there was no love from my end. So I just didn't want to be in that life no more.
Raptor Squad's tactics were relentless. They blocked off entire streets when he dined. They followed his every move. In 2019, Moudi made the unprecedented choice. In front of hundreds of followers on a live stream, he burned his colors. The ultimate act of defiance and surrender rolled into one. The vest that had carried his patches, his pride, his identity for 2 decades turned to ash. The prince had surrendered his crown.
And then I ended up I burned my colours. I posted it on live burning them and left.
Attempts were made on his life after burning his colors.
Get the fuck back!
Watch the bikes, boys! Watch the bikes! Get out here!
Stop! Wait! Hey! Where's the podcast there, dog? Hey! What do you think you're doing?
Oh, stop! We don't want to fight.
But on the streets of Western Sydney, where his story began, questions lingered. Could a man like Moudi Tajjour ever truly leave the life? Could someone who had tasted such power be content with ordinary existence? His brother and cousin were in custody. His empire was crumbling.
My cousin's in jail doing 25 years. My best friends are all in jail. My brother's in jail.
But the monster he'd become, forged in the commission flats and hardened in prison yards, wouldn't simply disappear. The chapter was ending, but the story wasn't over.
Look at me, 38 years old. Every friendship I ever built up was destroyed when I left the club. You're gonna build friendships and everything, you're gonna end up in two places. Dead or in jail. All like me, sitting on a couch, alone with no one around you. So really 3 places. Dead, jail, or alone.
It was just changing form. Today, Moudi Tajjour rules a different kind of empire. His TikTok account, Can't Fight Fate 14, generates more revenue than most street operations, pulling in hundreds of thousands of dollars monthly.
I've got a TikTok page called Can't Fight Fate 14. And I'm not even joking, I'm the king of TikTok. Even Google it, they wrote an article about it. I become #1 in Australia numerous times every week.
The former bikie prince commands an army of followers instead of soldiers. His war room now a studio where he records daily content for over 500,000 loyal fans.
I get on TikTok, and as soon as I'm on, everyone comes to talk to me. And from that, I end up generating hundreds of thousands of dollars a month from gifts. People gift me, they like the way I talk, they like to watch me, and I like talking to people, you know what I mean?
He lives near the water, far from the commission flats, where his story began. His son, Gabriel, named specifically because no gangster had ever carried that name, represents his hope for a different future. It's a deliberate father's attempt to steer his son away from the life he once lived, but the past refuses to fade entirely. His phone still rings with offers from those who remember the power he once wielded. A recent proposition of $4 million to return to club life was turned down flat. The streets still whisper his name in Maryland, King's Cross, and every dark corner of Sydney's underworld.
I grew up wanting to be the baddest gangster on the street, following the footsteps of my cousin Sam and John. And I grew up looking up to them. And that's how I ended up being a nomad and a thug on the streets of Sydney.
The monster still lives inside him, just contained, controlled. He admits this freely, understanding that decades of violence don't simply wash away. At recent bikie funerals, he's found himself among faces he barely recognizes. A new generation has taken control, and the old world he knew is dying. His daily routine has shifted from club meetings to content creation. The same charisma that once commanded hardened criminals now captivates social media audiences. Every morning, he speaks to thousands through his phone, building an empire of clicks and views instead of blood and brotherhood. But the police still watch him. His name still carries weight in circles both legitimate and criminal. But Moudi Tajjour, the prince who became king, who surrendered his crown only to build a new one, seems content with his digital kingdom. For now. The question that haunts both law enforcement and his followers remains: how long can a warrior be content with digital conquests? Only time will tell. But in the rapidly evolving landscape of power and influence, perhaps Moudi Tajjour hasn't surrendered his crown at all. He's just reforged it for a new age.